What's happening here? Oh, fuck. I'm being told Jon Jones has retired. Hey, you're on air, so be careful what you say here. You're telling me Jon Jones has retired?
I'm telling you that Dana White just said it. He spoke to him last night, and Jon Jones is retired, and Tom Aspinall is now the undisputed UFC heavyweight champion.
Are they saying when Tom is coming back?
No, that's why I started texting you.
Okay. Let me know if they just say when he's coming back or who he's fighting or whatever.
Okay.
All right.
I'll send them a message.
All right. Thanks. Okay. We interrupt this program. God. Oh, my fucking God. All right. Let's talk about it. All right. Jon Jones has apparently retired, everybody. This is not supposed to be part of what we're talking about, but we're going to talk about it. Let's, wow. I am floored. Or maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not. Okay. Jesus. All right. All right. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my God, boys and girls. All right. All right. We have to talk about this. We have to talk about this. So Jon Jones has apparently retired. I will not miss him. I will not miss him. I think the way that his title run at heavyweight has gone has been one of the more insane things I've ever seen in my life. Now, we should be very clear about it. The degree to which it got dragged out is not entirely on Jon. We all know that. We have said, hey, UFC, you should strip him. And then they didn't. And we're just sitting here waiting. And we're like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? Like, why haven't they done this yet? Why hasn't this been a thing? Like, we've been wondering what they've been waiting on, whether we thought it was a television deal. I was always skeptical of that. I even said it on Friday's MK. I don't think that makes sense. Sure enough, it has nothing to do with anything. We thought, they're still trying to work something out for November, and we're just going to have to just wait until September before they even give us some kind of answer. Clearly they didn't. They decided to stop doing that, I guess, after all the media that Jon had been doing. This is not entirely on UFC. There's a big part that's on UFC, but it's not entirely on UFC. And in fact, you can apportion the blame how you want. Kaposa Grabaka Hitman on Twitter said it should not be possible for a guy to go up in weight and then somehow damage his legacy. Like, you go up in weight and become a champion and somehow your legacy gets worse. And I don't know if it actually will, because, he did manage to beat Cyril Gane, which is not an utterly unimpressive achievement, but, obviously it comes with some major caveats. But everything else about it has been just a gigantic problem. And it has damaged the entire division. It has damaged, to a degree, the UFC. It has damaged Tom Aspinall's career. Not that it's unrecoverable, but it certainly didn't help. And I'm not sure who it helped other than Jon. It was so funny to me when people were like, hey, Luke, how come you're not more on his side about, like, the pay part? And it's like, I'm never, like, I've said it before, like, whatever he was getting paid on those pay-per-views, they probably should have been double, maybe even triple. It's not even that. But here's the other reality of, like, the Jon Jones experience. This is a guy who fucked up in any number of ways, both in the cage, or at least inside the sport, and then outside of the sport, and had people literally and then figuratively bail him out time after time after time after time, me included, making excuses time after time after time after time, to the point where like literally pops for this, again, there are ways in which you can argue. And in fact, USADA argues in the ultimate arbitration that there was this pulsing issue, although the evidence around the pulsing has changed a little bit. I don't know if you guys know that. And now there might be not as much evidence that's exonerating him as they had at the time they had during the arbitration. This is the problem with anti-doping, because they think they have definitive science and then they fucking don't. But okay, putting that aside, they move an entire event for him to a different state, and then they, on a week's notice. This is a guy who got done a lot of favors by the sport. Now, again, he, like many other fighters, most other fighters, nearly all fighters, has been underpaid too. It's not a one or the other kind of thing, but he got done a lot of favors. The sport and UFC and commissioners and fans forgave him endless number of times. I've never seen I just can't recall someone who got done as many solids through this many errors as this guy. And I thought, maybe when we get to the end, he'll realize that, you can still make a lot of money and then give something back to the sport as a consequence. But in the end, the last chapter of his career, and you could say the entire career, but certainly the last chapter, he was just a taker. It was, granted it's prize fighting, but it's just a little weird to me that the UFC can do in the sport, and the fans can endlessly forgive, endlessly help out, endlessly bail out. And when it's time to like maybe give a little bit back, nope, not interested. Just not interested. He was a taker in the last chapter. I watched his light heavyweight run. It's maybe the best run I've ever seen any kind of fighter go through. It's maybe the best one I've ever seen, maybe the best one that you'll ever see. I take nothing away from his light heavyweight run. I've seen people try and diminish it. You can't. It was exemplary in every possible way. Total, complete, absolute dominance over a weight class in the most extreme forms imaginable. That is what he offered. That's who he is, and you have to give it to him. But his heavyweight run was the exact opposite of this. His heavyweight run was in every way not this. His heavyweight run was the antithesis of his light heavyweight run, where, again, all the fuck-ups that got forgiven, no return to the fans on the other end, no return to the UFC on the other end, no return to the sport on the other end, just taking. I am grateful, and I truly mean this. I am grateful that I got to watch him compete as a light heavyweight. I'm glad I got to see all of those. It was thrilling many times. It was exciting many times. It was interesting many times, and it was certainly dominant basically every time. Not quite, but basically. And that is special. He's a special fighter. There's really no getting around it. I feel very grateful for that. But I feel like probably most of you, that the last however long this guy's been fucking around, I feel cheated out of the rest of that time. Full on cheated. We waited all this time for this, for a press conference in Baku, Azerbaijan, to declare that here's another champ not giving the weight belt back to, or not putting it up for grabs after everything the sport did for him. It's fucking crazy to me, man. It's crazy to me. Unbelievable. This is the way it ends. At a post-fight press conference for a fight night in Baku, Azerbaijan. Who had that one on their bingo card? Incredible. The other reason why I'm not going to miss him is because if this is all it was going to be, this is nothing. And I have no interest in watching. The Stipe Miocic fight was a fucking huge waste of time. Does anyone feel satisfied about that? I certainly don't feel satisfied about that. And the Gane fight, that's mostly Gane's fault, but whatever. It was a gigantic, this whole episode was a gigantic waste of time. Man, I am glad that is over. And then I guess the last thing I'd say about this, about Jon, I mean, there'll be more to say tomorrow and there'll be more to say the day after. I'm giving you an immediate reaction. But, the guy seemed to be a terrible person. Even if you want to exonerate him for all of the anti-doping stuff, and that's a big if, crashing his Bentley, shooting a gun off during the pandemic, drinking. Need I say more about the incident at the hotel in Vegas with his family, the one that got caught on camera where he's banging his head on the front of a car, police car anyway. to say nothing of any number of other incidents he's been involved in. That hitting the pregnant lady and running, like, just seems like a bad guy, and the sport is full of them. He is hardly alone. That just doesn't seem like a great person. Like, the fewer of those kinds of guys that are in the sport, I would argue, honestly, probably the better, especially if they're not even good anymore and they don't want to risk it anymore. I don't think the story of Jon Jones is any one thing. And a big portion of it, a huge portion of it, is obviously his considerable skill and his outrageous level of achievement at 205 pounds. That is, no one can take that away from him. I wouldn't try, and I really recommend none of you try as well. But the bigger story, the fuller story, is a very complicated figure who appears to be a bad person. And, again, I think the fighter pay issue is one that is on his side. But according to the reporting from Aaron Helwani, they met that in a pretty significant way, and it still wasn't enough. And again, UFC has responsibility here as well and letting this situation fester. But he actively played into it as well, and all we got was a pretty big waste of time. We didn't get the Francis fight. We didn't get the Tom Aspinall fight. We didn't get a fight against anybody that was interesting, really. I'm happy to see this chapter close. I really am. Who was enjoying the Jon Jones news cycle? Right? Who was enjoying that? Who was enjoying the Jon Jones experience? Who really enjoyed that Stipe Miocic fight? Yeah, Jon looked good on that night. I've said it the whole time. He looked good on that night. But, like, against what, dude? And again, the state of the heavyweight division, Cyril Gane can't grapple for shit, and Jon just runs him over. Again, that's not Jon's fault. But then, the UFC, doubling down. Let's talk about the UFC's role in this whole fucking nightmare situation, please. Can we? I'll have more to say. Everyone is going to have more to say about Jon Jones in the coming days. But, dude, the UFC, man, what am I missing here? We didn't get, and that was WEC, but it was under Zuffa Purchase. We didn't get Norifumi Yamamoto versus Uriah Faber. We didn't get Fedor versus Brock. We didn't get Fedor versus Randy. We didn't get GSP Silva. We didn't get Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, heavyweight unification, by the way, not even like a super fight beyond that, just a heavyweight title unification. And I'm sure I'm missing other ones along the way. We didn't get Islam versus Ilya, and that's, again, partly the UFC's choosing. Man, for a sport that's got nearly all the best fighters under one roof, they sure do whiff a lot on making some of the biggest fights that they possibly can. We did get Conor Habib, and that was a huge success. Credit to him. It's kind of amazing how often the UFC doesn't deliver on making the biggest fights when they've got all the resources. And they let this one fester much longer than it should have been. I understand the game they were playing. They need as many headliners as possible that can sell big pay-per-views. And they wanted to give this one as much leash as they could in order to deliver on that. I certainly understand it. And if they gave him all the money that they possibly could, and he's, they met his demands, let's say, and he's still saying no, well, then at that point, you can't say the UFC didn't try. I'm not saying the UFC didn't try. I'm just saying there's a bit of a pattern here of, like, the big ones, by hook or by crook, just not happening. This is terrible for Tom Aspinall. Yes, he becomes the full-on weight class champion. That's great. I'm glad it's good for him in one sense. He finally gets to be active again. He finally gets to go out there and compete again. That's all good. And by the way, if he loses, I have a feeling that Jon's all of a sudden going to start feeling very froggy. But golly, dude, don't you just miss the days when the MMA news was fucking awesome? This is the biggest MMA news these days. Fights that don't happen, guys are retiring, and Conor's punching people in nightclubs. It's like, damn, bro. Fucking hell, man. Golly. I appreciate that the UFC finally cut it off. They finally put an end to this. It couldn't have gone on much longer. It just reached absurd levels where Jon is drinking fucking seltzer on a Milk Boys podcast, and I'm not going to fight again. And he's slurring his words and shit, and you're like, dude, this is the state of the heavyweight championship. Like, they had to put a stop to it. But Tom lost all this fucking time, and you're like, who could he have fought? It doesn't matter. He could have been making money. He could have been adding to his legacy. He could have been doing something. Better to do that than the alternative, which is just fucking around this way. But I'll tell you what, Tom Aspinall was right. Tom Aspinall said, I'm going to retire him without ever fighting him. He sure fucking did, didn't he? Boy, he sure did. Woo, he sure did. He retired him. He retired that Bubba. Pretty incredible. He even said he would, and he did exactly what he said he was going to do. It's unfortunate that it had to happen that way, though. Like, that part kind of sucks, to be honest with you. Man, this is depressing news, bro. I'm sorry to be like so down in the dumps about it, but like, I'm not sure what else to say. That's one of the most dude, that is wait, man. What does this do to Jon's like overall legacy pound for pound? Does it hurt it a little bit? I think it does. Dude, this was textbook ducking. Textbook ducking. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Did Jon Jones duck Tom Aspinall? Yes. Yes. Oh, he doesn't have to fight him. He's a champion. He could pick his own spots. Let me tell you something. The people who say shit like, hey, Jon's a legend. He can pick his own spots. I want you to know, because I know none of you are that dumb. None of you are that dumb. Those people, if they're in your orbit, please take pity on them. These are people who are like, they have some kind of cognitive handicap, because only someone in that condition could believe something so obviously idiotic. If you hold the belt, you have an obligation to that weight class. And if you hold the belt, you have an obligation to the most deserving of that weight class. And I guarantee you, because he's kind of hinted at it, at Francis, that's more interesting. He doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. Because Tom Aspinall has nothing to offer. He's the interim champion. This unification would be enormous. Also, again, I mentioned it's not really the strongest argument, but it's just kind of weird to me that the guy's been a taker all this time. Whatever. He doesn't give back to the sport when there's an opportunity. He could have made a ton of generational money. Doesn't matter. None of that's the matter. That was the guy you had to fight. If you didn't want to fight him, give up the belt and fight somebody else. And maybe he will. Maybe he'll fight, I don't know, whoever the fuck now. I don't know. Maybe they will make a Poetan fight. I mean, I don't know if there's market for that. I don't know. But that's just straight up textbook ducking. Like, there's just no other word for it. I mean, what would it even be? Like, I don't. Yes. Does he have to fight these guys? No. If he's not going to fight him and you just want to retire, I don't have a problem with the retirement under that consideration by itself. But after all this rigmarole, after taking the Stipe fight, which made less than 0 cents, other than just to sell pay-per-views, right? That's what that was. That was TKO being like, okay, we can sell pay-per-views this way, even though the matchup is pointless and stupid. Again, they play a role in all of this too. But what a waste. What a fucking waste. Here we go. White says that he doesn't regret, Dana White says he doesn't regret giving Jon Jones so much time to decide on what he was going to do. He feels bad that Tom Aspinall has lost so much time by not fighting anyone and that they'll make it up to him. Yeah, they're going to have to. They're going to have to. Man, remember all that Dana White glazing of Jon Jones? Fucking Jon Jones. Fucking greatest that's ever done it. Fucking this guy's different, blah, blah, blah. And then to get this, like, all that rhetoric was about a life that he hasn't been living for 5 years. You know what I mean? All that rhetoric, absolutely irrelevant to the present day situation. Disconnected in every way. Wow. Oh, there's more. Dana was asked about Francis Ngannou, and Dana said, I don't like him. How can they look at the state of this heavyweight division and think that they're too good for Francis? How can that be? How can that be? Now, Francis isn't available. That's a different consideration. But just saying, I don't like him. I don't like him. Who gives a fuck who you like? Who gives a shit? You think I like all the fighters I have to cover? Or all the organizations? Or I like all the people I've ever had to work? Who gives a fuck? Oh, I don't like him. What is this, a child running this promotion? I don't like him. So what? You need him. What are we talking about? You just lost Jon Jones. Francis is amenable to coming back. What are we talking about here? Dude, I've been asking people over the years, like, how will you know when, like, Dana White needs to be replaced, or like when there's, he's bad for the sport. And some of the things that I thought were going to cost him never did, like everyone's like, oh, he's brash and stuff. And I was like, yeah, but he says a lot of crazy shit and he's cool with crazy people. And I wonder if the public would ever have backlash to it. And the answer is they basically never did, right? It happened at times and it's polarizing now, but it never really actually cost him in the end. So you actually can't make that argument. You cannot make that argument. That argument doesn't work. But if you're at the place where you're letting your pettiness prevent you from making quite obviously good business decisions that the fans are pining for, and that your lagging product, if you want to say nothing else, certainly the heavyweight division is lagging, not just in UFC, but everywhere. You have that one guy can't fix it, but geez, he can add some electricity. I don't like him. Oh my God. This is why MMA is so down bad, bros. Lady and gentlemen, this shit. We're in again, I'm sure the people of Azerbaijan are nice. We're in the middle of fucking a place that a dictator basically hired, a dictatorial government hired them to come over. They're announcing that they're one of their few remaining biggest stars, doesn't want to fight after a generational level duck. And then the response is, I don't like Francis. Oh my fucking God. Oh my God. You have to laugh. You have to laugh. That or cry. You have to laugh. You have to laugh. Is this what y'all want? Is that what y'all want? Y'all want y'all's promoter, your number one promoter? Y'all want him saying, I can't do business with a guy because I have to be petty and hold grudges? That's the leadership you want from your dominant promoter? Someone tell me that's what they want. Someone tell me. That's what you want? It's not what I want. I honestly don't like, nothing I want matters, right? Like I could say, keep Dana White, get rid of Dana White. It doesn't matter. But what I am going to say is, if you're going to keep him, fine. I'm not even going to go to the mat to be like, you got to get rid of Dana. I don't care. Keep him. But for the love of fucking God, even as I understand it, Vince McMahon would get sideways with people, but then if it made sense to bring him back, he would just bring him back. We can't have that. What is the fucking argument for heavyweight being so good that you can keep Tom Aspinall on ice? You lose your heavyweight champion and your biggest pay-per-view star. Now, granted, I said it, UFC made a lot of mistakes in letting this drag on, but according to the reporting from Ariel Helwani, and I worked with Ariel Helwani, when he reports it, I believe him. I've seen his process. When he says it, I believe him. He's saying that they met whatever his financial, and he still didn't do it. And then you look at the state of this, and the response is, we don't need Francis. You need Francis like a person needs water in the fucking desert. Like a blind man needs glasses. Like BC needs a liver transplant. It's not even arguable. Golly, bro. Fuck me. I can't believe this shit. Who looks at that heavyweight? Let's look at the heavyweight division. Let's look at the fucking heavyweight division, shall we? Let's look at this comical ass shit. Let's look at heavyweight. Let's have a nice long gander at it. Look at this. First of all, he's gone. Tom Aspinall, he's great. Cyril Gane, not my favorite, but he's active reasonably. Well, actually, that's not even true, but whatever. Volkov, much improved. Shouts to him. Pavlovich, He can punch hard. I'm not sure what else. Curtis Blades. I like Curtis, but that was not a strong showing. Almeida, one-trick pony. Very good one-trick, but one-trick pony. Waldor Cortez Acosta, I think, is kind of a sign of the times. Marcin Tybura, need I say more? Sergey Spivak, need I say more? Derek Lewis, we all love Derek, but we know there's limits. And then number 11 is motherfucking Tai Tuivasa. Brothers and sisters, look at this shit and think to yourself, we don't need Francis. They need Francis fucking like yesterday they needed Francis. Holy shit. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. Down bad, bros. MMA is down bad. Wow, man. I would have so much respect for UFC and Dana White. I mean this quite sincerely, not on personal levels. I think, it's a very different conversation, but just professionally, if they brought back Francis, I'd be like, you know what? Respect for putting the differences aside to deliver for the fans. When you reject Francis after giving Jon the longest, most off-putting leash imaginable, who are you serving? Are you serving the heavyweight division? Nope. Are you serving UFC customers? No. Are you serving Tom Aspinall? Nope. Who the fuck are you serving? I got it. You're serving yourself because you didn't like that this guy had the audacity to go make big money. And, we lost a bunch of times in boxing, but to go make sick money, more than 30 million, as I understand it, between 30 and 40. And okay, that's 40 million. Let's say you didn't even have to pay him. Now he gets to come back and you get to and the response is, I don't like, oh my God. Oh my fucking God. Guys, if your promoter can't deliver for you and doesn't feel the need to, what more can I possibly say? Right? What a mess this situation has been. This is what I mean about Jon Jones. I respect his light heavyweight run as much as I've respected any, Demetrius at 125, GSP at 170, you name it. I have, there's nothing you can say about it, but I am so fucking glad that this chapter is over. I am relieved that this chapter is over. Granted, we're out of the frying pan into the fire because they're not going to bring back Francis apparently, and now we just have to live in this world that comes after him. But at a bare minimum, at least we've stopped this. What a nightmare! What an endless, ridiculous circus that didn't need to happen. I'm like, I can't believe that the great Jon Jones's career ends this way, but I'm not happy that I'm not unhappy that it ended at all. I'm not gonna sit here and I'm playing the fiddle. No, but I'm relieved. Relieved is the word I would pick. Relieved, and now dismayed at the state. God fucking gee, I can't believe this. How can you look at heavyweight and think, yeah, we're solid there? Oh, how can you do that? How can you do that? How with a straight face? How can you do that?